WADR, promoting dialogue. It's midday in Dakar and Monrovia, 1 p.m. in Abuja. Good afternoon and thank you for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and online on wadr.org. Welcome to NEWSLINK. Let's begin with our top stories. A military court in Togo sentences the nation's former chief of general staff to 20 years in prison for the murder of Colonel Majoba. Manhunt for fugitive from Conakry Central Prison triggers district lockdown and human rights concerns. And deteriorating security situation in Mali's Gao region results in the death of one journalist and the abduction of two others by suspected jihadists. Meanwhile, defeated Liberian presidential candidate Clarence Moniba declines to endorse either candidate in the runoff election.
We will not be endorsing any particular party because of where we are as a nation. We are divided enough. People have already died because of these elections. Properties have been destroyed and families have been broken.
Stay with us for details of these stories and more.
Here is Abdullahi Hassan with NEWSLINK.
Many thanks for joining us and a warm welcome to our listeners in Gambia, Ghana, and Liberia. Let's begin in Togo, where a military court in the capital, Lomé, has ruled in the case of the assassination of Colonel Bitala Majoba in 2020. 5 soldiers in total were convicted in the matter, while 2 others, Lieutenant Colonel Senam Agbenku and Commander Pacha Atikbe, Deputy Commander of the Military Security Unit, were acquitted. Recall, Majoba was found dead on May 4, 2 years ago, in his office when he had attended the swearing-in of President Foya Tingbe, a close ally, according to sources. Emo Edet has the rest of the details.
The court sitting in Lomé, the nation's capital, late Tuesday issued its verdict in the trial that opened nearly 2 weeks ago. After several hours of debate in the courtroom patrolled by security forces, the jury went contrary to the prosecutor's recommendations. The primary suspect in the case, the former Chief of General Staff General Abalo Kadanga, was served a 20-year jail term in the murder of Colonel Majoba. 2 others, Chief Corporal Songene Yendukwa, driver of the deceased, and Colonel Kojo, were sentenced to 15 years imprisonment. The prosecution had requested sentences of 50 and 40 years respectively. Commander Balaikeme Bowe, commander of the military security unit, and soldier Laletu Akuna were each sentenced to 5 years in prison. The convicts, according to the court, were found guilty of complicity in the assassination, obstruction of the proper functioning of justice, and conspiracy against the internal security of the state. They, however, denied all the accusations during the trial. The convicted soldiers who, following the sentences, have been dismissed were also ordered to pay 1 symbolic franc to the family of late Colonel Bitala Majoba and to jointly pay the Togolese state the sum of 1 billion francs for damages.
Emo Edet reporting there. In Guinea, the search for the latest fugitive following an attempted escape from Conakry's central prison remains ongoing. Certain districts of the capital are currently under siege, leading residents to take refuge indoors. Civil society and human rights organizations have expressed apprehension regarding the conduct of these operations, urging the defense and security forces to prioritize professionalism to prevent any unintended civilian casualties. Zankle Janko has more.
In recent days, the search for Colonel Claude Pivi has led to several disturbances in various districts. The Kalom commune was affected on Saturday, followed by Sumatran and Manea, then Kolea and Mafanko on Monday, and finally the Lambani and Kobaya districts on Tuesday. Many residents have expressed their concerns about the disruption of their peace and tranquility. Ibrahima Balaya Jallo, president of the Guinean Civil Forum, and Mamadi Kaba, president of the League for Rights and Democracy in Africa, have attributed these intense security force operations to a precarious situation faced by the authorities. To prevent further collateral damage as the search continues, Mamadi Kaba has issued an appeal to the defense and security forces. Tragically, the collateral victims of these operations include an injured nurse and a 6-year-old girl. They were affected during an incident involving an ambulance on Saturday morning while attempting to reach the Ignaz Dean Hospital with an accompanying individual.
Sankle Janko, that report filed in by WADR's Conakry correspondent Terno Alpha Ibrahim Balde. And now to the Sahel. Reports emerging from Mali indicate that at least 12 civilian casualties were recorded from drone strikes by the armed forces in the northern town of Kidal. These strikes, including one on United Nations peacekeeping mission's base vacated, are believed to be the first signs of conflict in Kidal since MINUSMA's departure last month. However, the accuracy of these figures has been contested by the Collective for the Defense of the Military. On the other hand, the Malian Defense Headquarters claims its operation resulted in deaths of several terrorists and the destruction of their vehicles, although no further details were provided. Francis Boniface has put this report by WADR's Bamako correspondent Ali Cham.
In a recent statement from the Malian Armed Forces Information and Public Relations Directorate, the army had conducted airstrikes on terrorist targets at the former MINUSMA base in Kidal. However, specific details and casualties were not disclosed. According to Mohamed El Maloud Ramadan, spokesperson for the Permanent Strategic Framework, the strikes reportedly resulted in significant casualties among children and notable individuals in the area.
The strikes targeted children, most of them next to the camp left by the MINUSMA. Another group of children around the school next to Camp 1 and another house belonging to a deputy mayor where a number of notables died. Up to 20 people were killed, all civilians, including around 8 or 10 children and around 30 wounded.
A statement from the Collective for the Defense of Military Personnel refutes any allegations of the Army's involvement in any atrocities against civilian populations. Yunus Soumara is the General Secretary of the Collective.
We reject
this assessment because we are dealing with a professional army. So to say that they didn't go and kill the children, no, they didn't. We saw them when they killed the children. We've seen them when they've conquered places, going up to old women, old men, children, and telling them, "We are here for you. Calm down, we are here to make you and your belongings safe. All those who have fled can return, we are here." Suddenly, if they come and give us figures that there have been deaths of children, but it's not the first time.
The Malian army, determined to reclaim control of the Kidal camp from armed independence groups following United Nations mission's departure, has asserted it conducted multiple strikes over the weekend. Farmer claimed to have neutralized several terrorists.
A report by Ali Jamba Markwan, voiced in our studios by Francis Boniface. Now, still in Mali, at least one journalist has been confirmed killed and 2 others abducted by suspected terrorists in the Dakar region, where their vehicle came under heavy attack. The attack, which occurred on Tuesday, according to sources, comes just a day after gunmen ambushed a humanitarian convoy belonging to the NGO Action Against Hunger on the same axis. Ogebirika completes the story.
The attack on the vehicle transporting the journalist on Tuesday resulted in the death of Abdul Aziz Jibrila, a radio host in Labizanga, a town located in the Gao region. Reports indicate that Haruna Atino, another journalist working with Alafia Radio in Ansongo, was injured and 2 others were abducted by the suspected jihadist. The director of Radio Cotton Dansongo, Salek Akjidu, and Mustaf Kone were those seized during the attack. When contacted by WADR, Reporters Without Borders confirmed the incident but said it was collecting more information. Tuesday's attack on the journalist comes a day after another perpetrated against humanitarian workers from the NGO Action Against Hunger on the same Gao and Songo axis. Anadolu citing a source disclosed that an assistant rapid response mechanism project manager who was part of the team assigned to provide emergency assistance to displaced people was killed at point-blank range, while an investigator who accompanied him was injured. Security sources in Mali say the Gao and Songo Road is becoming one of the most dangerous routes in the country because of the presence of the Islamic State in the Sahel affiliate groups that operate there with complete impunity. In addition to deadly attacks, this area also experiences other acts such as kidnappings for ransoms, targeted assassinations, theft, and robberies.
Ogebirika reporting there.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. NewsLink continues.
Well, away from the Sahel, Liberia's defeated presidential candidate of the National Union Party, Clarence Moniba, has opted not to endorse either of the candidate in the upcoming November 14 presidential rerun. Following the initial October 10 polls, none of the 20 presidential candidates secured the constitutional mandate of 15% plus one vote required for an outright victory, leading to the need for a second round of voting. WD's Monrovia correspondent Daliton Popper reports.
Clarence Moiba declared that his party has decided not to support the ruling Coalition for Democratic Change and the main opposition Unity Party, citing the two parties' responsibility for the plight of the impoverished masses. Despite this, Moiba clarified that his party remains prepared to collaborate with whoever emerges as the winner in a runoff poll.
We will not be endorsing any particular party because of where we are as a nation. We are divided enough. People have already died because of these elections. Properties have been destroyed and families have been broken. Worse is that our country of Liberia is still way behind the other countries that are way behind. As all of this has been happening, the two parties that have been in control for the past 18 years, CDC and UP, who were both in the runoffs in 2005, 2011, and 2017, have come to us again with promises and the message of change.
Expressing her stance, Sarah Besloyanti, the standard bearer of the African Liberation League, stated that while she will not directly endorse either of the two candidates, she has initiated a campaign to ensure the protection of voters' rights during the upcoming election day.
This is not about who you're endorsing, and I'm not going to be neutral either. I'm participating not by endorsing one side or the other, but by endorsing Liberian people to say there's a side here that we haven't looked at. There's a side here that people who don't want to vote. There are people who have voter apathy. There are people who feel that their votes weren't counted. We have over 100,000 invalid votes. Everybody needs to participate in our elections. My position is not to remain neutral and sit on the sideline. My position is to participate and make sure the Liberian people vote that they want Joseph Walker and President Weah to go to the polls on November 14th. That's what the Liberian people want, and we need to support the Liberian people to make sure that they continue this process the same peaceful way, but that they have more education. Voter education was a big major gap.
As of now, campaigning activities continue across the nation in preparation for the presidential runoff polls scheduled for November 14. For NewsLink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Darlington Popper in Monrovia.
Nigeria is currently grappling with a shortage of petroleum products in certain regions due to a brewing leadership dispute within the Petroleum Tanker Drivers Association. The internal conflict has escalated tensions among the warring factions within the association. WD's Abuja correspondent Usman Umar reports that efforts are being made to resolve the dispute.
The dispute initially erupted when drivers accused the Nigerian Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, NUPENG, of trying to impose leadership candidates on them during a recent election. In protest, some of the dissatisfied drivers refrained from participating in the elections, leading to abandoned trucks on major roads. This blockade caused hardships for other road users. However, during the meeting held in Abuja on Tuesday, two representatives, one from each of the conflicting parties, Mr. Lucky Oseswa and Mr. Dayebu Yusuf Ganga, appealed to their members to remain calm and continue with their lawful duties while awaiting the resolution of the court case between the drivers and NUPENG.
About their normal duties, whoever molests them, they should please hold peace. Nobody should quarrel or fight anybody. outside there. We are for peace, we are not for destruction. Because whatever happened in the wrong way, we don't know how it will end in the other way.
Everything is under control. And since everything is under control, the struggle have now shifted to court. There is no need coming to talk to people here on the press. So we're now calling our members to go back to their normal duties. But the struggle to liberate PTD has just begun. Therefore, we must be peaceful in our conduct. But if we are challenged, we know where to go to protect ourselves.
Both sides are now anticipating the court's decision to bring an end to the conflict. Meanwhile, the scarcity of petroleum products in certain regions of the country continues to impact the daily lives and activities of citizens. As the situation unfolds, regional experts suggest it is crucial for all stakeholders to exercise patience and uphold the rule of law, allowing the judicial process to proceed to a fair and just resolution. For NewsLink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
Meanwhile, the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, and the Trade Union Congress, TUC, have declared their intention to embark on a nationwide strike slated for November 14. This came after both unions concluded an extraordinary National Executive Council meeting held in Abuja on Tuesday. The meeting centers on modalities of the planned strike following the brutalization of the national president of the NLC, Joe Ajaero. Ajaero's recent attack in Owerri, the Imo State capital, has sparked widespread outrage, accusing the Commissioner of Police, Mohammed Barade, of complexity. Recall the organized labor recently handed the federal government a 5-day ultimatum to replace the Commissioner of Police of Imo State following allegations of the attack on the NLC president. You are listening to NewsLink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal on 94.9 FM. Here's a reminder of our top stories. A military court in Togo sentences the nation's former chief of general staff to 20 years in prison for the murder of Colonel Majoba. Manhunt for fugitive from Conakry Central Prison triggers district lockdown and human rights concerns. The deteriorating security situation in Mali's Gar region results in the death of one journalist and the abduction of 2 others by suspected jihadists. Defeated Liberian presidential candidate Clarence Moniba declines to endorse either candidate in the runoff election due on November 14. Still ahead in the news, we have the guest interview and sports updates. Stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. NewsLink continues.
Remember, we stream live on wadr.org. In Ghana, the Cocoa Board has reportedly borrowed between $150 million to $200 million from cocoa traders to facilitate bean purchases from the ongoing 2023 to 2024 season. This loan was secured due to a delay in obtaining a bank loan, as stated by the regulator's public affairs manager. Traditionally, every September, the industry regulator of the world's second largest cocoa producer secures an international syndicated loan to support licensed buyers in purchasing cocoa from smallholder farmers for export. Reporting from Accra, here is WADR's Nadidi Titi.
The objective is to provide financial support to authorized purchasers who acquire cocoa from small-scale farmers for the purpose of export. Cocoa Board intends to secure a $1.2 billion loan this season, with $800 million to be sourced from a consortium of lenders and $400 million from alternative channels. Encountering delays in the process, Cocoa Board has resorted to traders to bridge the funding gap, as stated by Fifi Boafo, a representative of Cocoa Board. He informed Reuters that the borrowed funds would be repaid using the proceeds from the current harvest. Fifi Boafo further mentioned that the parliamentary approval processes for the $800 million syndicated loan agreements would commence this week. Following this, Cocoa Board will approach partner banks for their signatures. In early September, President Akufo-Addo declared that Ghanaian cocoa would be purchased from farmers at a significantly higher price compared to the previous year. Over the past few years, Ghanaian cocoa cultivators have begun ceding their farms to the nation's increasingly aggressive gold miners, influenced by economic downturn. According to Ghanaian officials, as of 2022, approximately 19,000 hectares of cultivation had vanished. This disappearance has been attributed to the escalating presence of galamsey, contributing to a decline which already has been affected by abundant rainfall this year. The 2022-2023 season in Ghana concluded with a shortfall of 44,000 tons of beans, leading to the premature conclusion of the season.
Na Dede Tite from Accra reporting.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
Joining us from Banjul is WADR's Sankule Janko, the preview of major headlines from the Gambian national dailies.
Hello there and welcome to this edition of the Press Review. Let's begin today's Press Review with the Point newspaper, whose lead story reads, Domestic workers' rights freedoms are violated in Gambia, report says. That was sacrificed live for Gambia. That's another story on the Point newspaper. State files defense in AKI case. Finally, government ought to create bill to crack down on migrants smugglers. That's another story on the Point newspaper. And this other story reads, Tourism Ministry showcase destination Gambia at 17th WTM Summit, of course, in London. Now let's move on to the Standard newspaper. The Standard newspaper's lead story reads, National Assembly misled about former president's bill. UDP spokesperson says, nature of bill makes Jammeh eligible. Well, I remember a National Assembly member asking the minister about Jammeh's eligibility. What he said is very clear, that Jammeh is a wanted man in the Gambia, and it is highly unlikely that he will benefit from such a bill, bearing in mind that there are a lot of legal implications for Jammeh. But the opposition is actually making best use of it, as you would expect to say that Jammeh could be eligible. This other one reads, Assembly to start budget session Monday. That's another story. Abdullah Cham versus Aisha Fati resumes at High Court. That's another story on the Standard newspaper. And this other story reads, UDP's petition against political advisors mentioned at Supreme Court. Bundu National Assembly member defends former president's bill. Let's move on to The Voice newspaper. The Voice newspaper's lead story reads, a politician says nationwide road clearing causes economic havoc. It's quite interesting. Well, I do know a lot of Gambians are actually in support of this particular exercise. Gambia joins most influential figures to extract wealth of insights at WTM 2023. Former audit staff's murder case adjourned. Girl stands accused of abandoning 1 month baby. Now, finally, let's move on to the Fourier newspaper. And the Fourier's lead story reads, Chartered accountant testifies in health officials' economic crime corruption trial. AKI case, Gambia admits children's death was caused by contaminated drugs. And this other one reads, NYP advocates for reintroduction of draft constitution. Let's take a look at the back pages of some of the newspapers. That's the sports. We start with the Standard newspaper, and the Standard's back page story reads, Consul Sane thrilled by arrival of Gambian players in Saudi League. And the back page of the Fourier newspaper reads, Chelsea pushing Napoli to open OSIWA talks. And Saudi Pro League top scorers 2023-2024 Golden Boot race. And these are the major stories making headlines on Gambian dailies, and it's back to you in the studios.
Indeed, many thanks, Sankule Janko.
Politics,
analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest this afternoon is Abdullahi Katiaba, a political analyst in Monrovia. His brief chat to WADR is focused on the ongoing political parties' realignment and solidarity for either incumbent George Weah and major opposition candidate Joseph Boakai. Katiaba also remarked on the silence by the National Electoral Commission (NEC) about preparations ahead of the 2014 Rwanda presidential election.
Well, I think everybody is anticipating the election. I think there's a campaigning, a lot of endorsement in the second round. Basically, these 2 weeks have been characterized by endorsement. Those some of the parties that did not make it to the could not make it to the second round. So people have been seeking endorsements, and people are looking forward to the second round. We know historically the turnouts are not as huge as the first round, but maybe you could have a breaking record turnout. But I think that is basically a lot of different endorsements from different candidates that won. Somebody that run for senators that won the elections, representatives that won the elections. Some of them are endorsing different candidates, like Joseph Boakai, some president we have. So generally, there's a sense of calm. There's not a fear of any kind of problem or chaos. And it's not as exciting, as robust as the first round. There's not as many events as the first round, but I think people are more engaged, more strategically targeting those who won elections, targeting those who have influence, reaching out to different regions of the country. So far, people are looking forward to the second round.
Talk about a vote margin. There are those in Liberia that have said if only these endorsements as seen currently ongoing was done just before the first round of elections, then there wouldn't have been the need for a rerun.
I think if the realignment that is taking place now, if they had taken place from the beginning, it would have been a game changer. The third place person voted, the fourth place, the fifth place candidates are now voting, but they too have political parties that it was difficult to bring them around two parties. Because this is not a two-party state; it's difficult, and so it's the nature of the elections in Liberia.
Exactly, Mr. Abdullahi. You just said Liberia is not a two-party system, but are we going to see that take place just maybe after the rerun?
That could be. Look, in the last 18 years, these two parties have dominated the politics. They've always gone second round. So these two parties have always gone second round since 2005. These two parties have dominated the politics of the country. And and that what has happened, we don't know what the future will look like, because the third party did not do well in these elections. They came distant third, very distant, remotely distant third.
Has the electoral umpire lately moved with adjustments to correct some of the observations that were made by election observers from the AU, ECOWAS, EU, and people like yourself in Liberia about some of the shortcomings in the first round of elections?
No, I think there's not been any announcement, but the nature of the process will cut down some of those complications just by in effect. Because the first round, you have about 27 representative candidates on the ballot. You got to go through that. Got about 20 senators, 20 presidential. So it was just the very nature of the first round was complicated. So it increases the number of invalid votes, almost 115,000 invalid votes. So that's a huge number that could have changed the result of the election. It could have just prevented a runoff. So I think the election government has not done a good work to tell us how much they have done or what much they have done to address some of those unresolved issues and questions, and some of the lessons, how are they applying those lessons to make sure we prevent the reoccurrence of what happened in the first one. We hope before the end of the week they'll be addressing that.
Abdullahi Katiaba is a Liberian political analyst. In the world of sports, Guinea has released a 23-man list ahead of their 2026 World Cup qualifiers against Uganda and Botswana. Captain Naby Keita has been named in the squad after returning from an injury that kept him on the sidelines for months. Informed Stuttgart forward Sehu Girassi was also named in the squad despite missing his club's last 3 games with a hamstring problem. And that's it for the sports update. And with that, we've come to the end of this edition of NewsLink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening. And many thanks to Maudo Juve and Mustafa Sek for the technical support. Do interact with us via social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio, English service, and stream live on WADR.org. I'm Abdullahi Hassan. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to NewsLink via Hot 104.3